Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd, and it is time for another edition of the Why You Know Review, where I go over a bunch of records gauntlet style that I have not reviewed, that I guess I wish I had the extra time to review, but I just didn't get around to it. It is what it is. I'm one guy. I can't review everything, but I am going to give some quick, little direct, to-the-point thoughts on all of these projects right here, right now. That's what it is. You know what it is. I said what it is. Let's do it. Ba-bam. New album from Washed Out is maybe the blandest and dreamiest record yet from the project's catalog. I mean, listening to this thing felt kind of like flipping through the brochure to a month-long island vacation. Sounds like, I don't know, really relaxing, but there's not much more to it. Lemon Twigs, I am happy to hear some semblance of progression on their latest LP over here. They seem to be getting better at embracing these blends of glam rock and 60s pop rock, but I still feel like the duo has a while to go before they're delivering some better performances and putting a distinct spin on all of these genres they're so boldly borrowing from. Been hearing a lot of commotion around this new Pottery record, and I get why. It's not a bad art punk record. It's not a bad post-punk record. There are some pretty fierce performances on this thing, a lot of great dance grooves and energy. I just don't think it's the most memorable stylistically. I still think the group has a little bit to go before they are actually, I don't know, putting a distinct spin on this stuff. But hey, if you're a fiend for this type of sound, give it a listen. Give it a shot. New Terminal Nation LP, a short, blunt, to the point, killer, heavy, riffy deathcore record with more emphasis on the death metal, more of an old school death metal type with some nice, steady hardcore elements and metalcore elements in it. It's quite good. I think it's a little one-dimensional, but I do like some of the thoughtful socio-political lyrics popping up here and there, and just the performances are relatively tight as well. Once more, I do wish there was more variety sonically or songwriting-wise to the track list, because it does tend to feel a little samey as I listen all the way through, but if you're looking for something that's gonna hit you hard and be sort of relentless, this is it. What is with this Lupe Fiasco EP? Like, some of the lyrics on these songs are absolutely shameful. It's weird how Lupe progressively will like drop a great project, drop a fantastic concept that's super thoughtful, and then he'll come through with a project that has all these weird ass dinosaur bars on it, and like, geez, I don't know where the guy's coming from sometimes. Like, I really don't. I mean, he clearly puts a lot of effort into what he does, and sometimes I feel like he gets on top of a bad concept or just like a bad direction, but because he is so passionate about what he does, he'll follow it all the way through, whether the results are great or not. That much you can give the guy. He follows through. But yeah, I think I'm mostly gonna sit this one out and just wait for something better to come down the pipe. Really enjoying a lot of the super intricate rhythms all over this Jessy Lanza LP. If there is anything that is a selling point to this album, it is that. It's the vocals that I found to be super weak, which I couldn't really ignore because they are such a focal point on this album. Having said that, though, again, few producers out there are producing beats as rhythmically intricate as Jessy is right now, so what she doesn't have in voice, she does kind of make up for in production abilities. New collaboration between Nick Hexum of 311 fame and George Clanton of George Clanton fame, 100% Electronica. And I have mixed feelings on this project, honestly. I think the production is fantastic. George's sense of vaporwave aesthetics, I think, has only gotten better and has managed to work those into some really summery vibes as well. Again, the synths, the drums, the timbres, the textures are all gorgeous, are all wonderful. My issue with the record beyond that, though, is I'm not the biggest fan of Hexum's voice. Like, I'm not exactly sure if it works over this style of production for the most part, and the songwriting can be a little hit or miss, but still, having said that, I feel like George's production is great enough to warrant, like, giving this a listen, giving it a shot, especially if you were a fan of his Slide album. Like, you're not going to want to miss what he does on this. And on top of that, look, like, if the vocals don't rub you the wrong way in the way they have with me, like, you will love this fucking thing, because this album is sort of like the summer record for the summer that should have been. New collection of tracks from Angel Olsen, which is essentially songs from her recent All Mirrors record, but stripped down versions of those tracks. And I was pretty interested to hear this in concept, because there are a lot of songs from All Mirrors that I like or I think are really respectable, but I don't care for the instrumental aesthetics they were wrapped in. I'm not crazy about the bigger, grander instrumentation or all of the synths. So once more, hearing them in a simpler context, I thought would be pretty exciting. The problem is, though, is that these don't even so much feel like stripped back versions as much as sometimes they just sound like really raw demos. I feel like it would be one thing to have a nicely put together, cleanly produced, and incredibly performed series of like either acoustic or semi-acoustic versions of these songs, but for the most part, like, a lot of the takes of these tracks are very raw. Like, the vocals don't even sound that great some of the time, and neither do the guitars. Just really not crazy about how this one was presented. You know, while the songs, the core of these tracks, may be pretty good for the most part. I mean, I'm sure many of you may feel so, because there were a lot of viewers of this channel who loved All Mirrors more than me. But like, even as someone who was not a fan of All Mirrors, like, the record does kind of objectively sound better. So, New album from New York experimental metal outfit Krallice, who seem to be in this ongoing process of finding a new direction and a new sound since their Years Past Matter record. Since that LP, they've kind of departed from the progressive and atmospheric black metal aesthetics that they broke onto the scene with. And with this new release over here, they're kind of doing a technical death metal thing, which is not too unfamiliar territory for a guy like Colin Marston, you know, if you've been following his work over the years. But I think Krallice does some pretty interesting things with it, especially during the portions where they change it up a little bit instrumentally, throw some keyboards in, work in some riffs that aren't quite so busy and disorienting. The playing is tight. The recording is good as well. It's a Marston record. The recording is going to be clean and punchy and very well balanced. I still couldn't help but feel like there was something missing from this, but I mean, for a technical death metal record, it has an organic vibe, good performances. It's got some beef-steel vocal performances too, but still couldn't bring myself to be enamored with it as much as I have been with Krallice's past work, as much as I would have liked to have been. New EP from K-pop outfit Itzy that has a few bangers on the front end, like this guitar-driven track around the middle that is super weak, where the vocals sound like kind of off, like out of tune almost in a way. And then we have some lighthearted dance pop to bring things up on the end. Itzy has continually been this kind of group that every once in a while they'll drop a banger, they'll drop a hit, they'll drop something with some really tightly wound creative production, lots of sections and passages in the song, but still remaining very catchy and energetic and electrifying. But it's really the tracks where they turn that excitement down that really ended up losing me on this one. But I don't know. I don't know if I require Itzy to put out an amazing album or an amazing EP at this point. Every once in a while, as long as they're dropping a track or two that I think is fantastic or just pop fireworks, I suppose I'm happy. My thoughts on this project are pretty simple. The production is luscious and gorgeous, groovy and wonderful. Like, when we get some horns or a great bass line in this collection of tracks, it is fantastic. It is sensual, bliss. A lot of the lyrics are quite sexy as well, but vocally, the record is kind of sleepy. I would hope for an album that is produced this well and is so upfront about its sexuality. You'd have some bolder, stronger, more expressive, or even alluring singing, but for the most part, the vocals here just kind of just made me want to take a nap. If you are looking for some power pop with an emo and an indie rock twist to it that is a little moody, lots of heavy, powerful chords and anthemic choruses, give this thing a shot. Give this new Front Bottoms album a listen. I mean, the vocals I could take or leave, and is this one of the more memorable albums in the power pop genre? In my opinion, not really. But if you're a fiend for that sound, give this thing a round. Tons of people freaking out about this Neptunian Maximalism record, recommending it to me, and I can see why. It is heavy, it is loud, it is large. This thing sounds like a grand ensemble of instrumentation that stretches across the galaxy. It is so blaring at points, powerful in its volume and its balance in the mix of instrumentation production-wise. But as much as I love the girth of this record, and this record has a lot of girth, not only is it large and in charge sonically, but it's also 2 hours in length. But the more I listen to this massive, drony, hulking, psychedelic cacophony of jazz and rock and a million other things, the less impressed I was with the compositional elements of this album. I don't think a lot of the time the playing and the writing is all that good, nor does the band sound super tight or together sometimes. I mean, I get that it's a little free, it's a little improvisational, but the messiness almost seems like kind of a detriment. This is not the same thing as listening to the freewheeling insanity of a free jazz album where everyone is just going berserk and going their own direction. It's more like, everyone's trying to contribute to this singular, drony, heavy sound, and it's not quite lining up, or there are just misfires in all directions on some tracks that are quite distracting for me. The volume isn't enough to kind of draw my ears away from how amateurish sometimes the playing is, or just how, I guess, little chemistry there is between all of the players. So, yeah, I was not as into this as I hoped I would be, given just how excited some people were for it, and how their tastes cross over into groups like Swans and so on and so forth. But yeah, this was not quite for me. I mean, I'd rather listen to Acid Mother's Temple or something like that. New EP from pop artist Troye Sivan. For the most part, I think this thing is a bit of a mess. Each track has its either weak vocal passages or its bad production choices. I think the only straight pop song on it that was kind of endearing and enjoyable from front to back was the closer. The rest of it, while featuring some endearing elements on every song, sort of dipped or faltered in some way, shape, or form along the progression of the runtime. So, yeah. A lot of discussion going on about this Gulch album, and I can see why. It is 16 or so minutes of some of the most blistering hardcore I have heard in 2020. It is nasty, it is ferocious, it is high volume. The performances are quite animalistic too, but maybe animalistic to the point where the drums are just a little out of whack and the vocals are just so insane that they're murdering everything else in the mix. The screams on this thing are throat searing. I can't even try to impersonate them, but look, if you're looking for an insane performance, give this thing a listen because you'll get it. Check out this artist by the name of Namdi. Now, the record that I'm talking about here is Crazy Karl, which is a very short and a very special little project that features elements of I guess, soundtrack music and jazz and math rock. It's all quite disorienting, a little Zappa-esque at points, experimental as well, and very colorful, very insane, whacked, so out there. But this album, this project, sounds wildly different from everything else that he has done up until this point. It's quite interesting how he is able to in a way, master so many different styles and sounds and genres, from lo-fi rock music to hip-hop to some poppy stuff. And again, he does a little bit of everything. I mean, while there's not anything in his catalog so far that has blown me away, I am still blown away generally by the fact that each project just has a totally different sound, approach, and vibe to it. And I don't know, that's going to keep me coming back just out of curiosity, for sure. New collection of tracks from Hudson Mohawke. It's like a compilation of throwback songs that are unreleased or have been floating around in an unofficial capacity. And it's just bangers, 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 and bangers. While it's far from perfect, a lot of heavy hitters on here. All Hudson Mohawke fans, Tonight fans, all that shit should listen to it, because quite a few songs on this thing go. Next, this Obnoxious Youth EP is a gnarly little crossover thrash album with lots of very nasty, punky elements to it. The recording is messy as fuck. I would say I would have liked for the drums to be a little bit more on. There are points where everything is playing in such an aggressive and out of control way. They're not quite syncing up as well as they should with the guitars, but if that doesn't matter to you, if you just want to hear the mayhem, if you just want to hear the insanity, if you just want to hear how deadly this fucking thing sounds, because there's a lot of great guitar work on it. Like, the soloing's fantastic, the riffs are creative. If you want to hear some crossover thrash that is a little balls to the wall, out of control, and trying to do some left field and weird and unexpected stuff here and there, give this a listen. Zishin, have you given any of these albums a listen? Did you love them? Did you hate them? What would you rate them? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe, and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up, or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano. Why You Know Review. Forever.